Okay, so yesterday we looked at HTML, your web page. You went through and you created a web page utilizing all the tags and elements that we had discussed during the week. You made sure you had a paragraph. You did an unordered or a ordered list. So bullets and numbers. You did headings. So we're going to throw a little bit of a spin on that today. Does everybody feel good with that? You're good with all of the ones we've done so far? So today we are moving on to lesson 6, styling text with CSS. So the question of the day asks, how can we change the style of text on a web page? That goes along with your bell ringer that's on the board. So in your notebook, when you were working with HTML, what was missing? What were you not able to do with your content utilizing the tags and elements that you've already started using? What was different? Because there's a few things that when you're using HTML that you can't do as it is. So if you'll write that under bell ringer for today is the 22nd. Okay, when you were doing your code, when you were putting in the HTML tags and elements to create your own web page, what were the limits with the HTML that you were using? What could you not really do? There were certain things that you just couldn't change. You didn't have the ability to change. And knowing what you know about HTML, what's the limits? What can we not change?
Can we put the new vocab in?
You're going to in just a second. I'll put it up here in a minute, though. Look at this, to give you a little hint about what I'm asking, look at this sample website here. From what you've learned with HTML, can you do this?
No. Not a lot.
Okay, what can you not do?
Oh, we don't know how to underline. We don't know how to change the color. We don't know how to do the spacing unless we just type it.
Okay, so all the kind of decorative parts, the styling parts.
Yeah, we can't do that.
So that's one limit. That's one of the things that's missing when you're using HTML. Because so far, we have only made web pages where we control the content and the structure. Remember, our HTML element, the paragraph element, will allow you to move the line down, but we don't really have anything yet that's going to enable us to underline or change the font color. So we've been using HTML as a language to specify the content and structure of the pages. While HTML gives us a little bit of control over how that looks, not as much as we want. So to do what we need to do to be able to underline, change the font color, we need a language that's going to deal with the style. And that's where CSS comes in. So on your vocab, we have 2 new vocabulary words. And when you go to lesson overview, you will see those. CSS and CSS selector. I'm going to make those a little bold. if you will make sure those get in your notebook. And this is under lesson overview if it's hard to see up here. So who remembers what did, when we learned about HTML, what did it stand for? Hypertext markup language. So for CSS, we've got cascading style sheets is where CSS comes from. And it's a language different than HTML, but it's used to describe how HTML elements should be styled. Whereas for HTML, we said that it's a language used to create the web pages. So CSS is what's going to allow us to put some style on the pages. And then we've got this CSS selector. That's what's going to define which HTML elements the style should be applied to. Now we need a new sheet that says CSS at the top where we put our new code, because this is not going to go on your HTML log. You need a CSS. They're going to work together. You can write on the back. It doesn't matter to me if you write on the back.
That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, just write on the back. It's fine. Do you want a new sheet? Okay. All right, so we're going to do a CSS log, very similar to our HTML log. And on that CSS log, we're going to do the 5 new types of code. So for the first one, I'm going to click on them because I'm going to give you the definition. Let me get that. But skip a little bit of space because I'm going to give you a definition that goes with each one. So if you want to go ahead and copy them down. Text decoration.
So we skip like 2 lines.
Yeah, that'd be good. And I'm going to go back and I'll give you, we'll look at what each one does. Okay, so looking at these, we'll come back actually after we've gotten a chance to use them and we'll do definitions for them. So let's click continue here so we can start looking at what we're going to do with these. Click continue on 2. All right, I'm on lesson 6, styling text with CSS, number 3. So for this one, it says this web lab project is using a new language to add style to the page. Explore both the index.html and style.css files. Be ready to discuss these questions. So on the left, you'll see the index.html. That's going to be what we've been working with all of our HTML, as you see .html. Look at the one underneath it, style.css. Look at both of those and be ready to answer these questions. Okay, so what changes is this new language making to the page? Different than what maybe you did yesterday. Yes?
Adding color.
Adding color.
And font.
Color, different font, things that were not able to do yesterday. How is this language different from HTML? Why do you need both?
Because if there wasn't HTML, it would be nothing.
Really wouldn't have anything to do anything with. Yeah, HTML is doing the structure. CSS is doing the style. They're working together. They're a team. So throughout this, they're going to work together. You're going to use both of them. All right, let's click finish. All right, this is a quick video that's going to be an intro to CSS. Questions to think about throughout this video is how is the style of a web page different from its structure? And then why might you want your web page to even have a certain style? This is just a few minutes, but I think it'll give you some good information. It'll pull up.
I'm Danny, and I'm a curriculum writer at ComSci. In college, I took my interest in sports and combined it with my interest in computer science. And I worked on a robotics team, and we actually competed internationally, so around the world. So I got to travel to Istanbul and Mexico, and I love how it connects to every field and any interest you have. As you've been building your websites, you learn to use HTML to give it structure. You've learned to define headings, lists, paragraphs, and images to make your website start to look the way you want. But usually just giving a website structure isn't enough. You want to give it style to fully bring the content to life. The same website about fitness could have a sleek and simple style or a quirky and eclectic style, and each would feel different to your user. Web developers can control the style of a web page using a language called CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. CSS allows a web developer to define a specific set of style rules to apply to HTML elements on the page. Let's take a look at how to use CSS to create style rules for a simple web page about fitness. First, we'll write the CSS to turn all the paragraph text purple. To indicate that we want to apply a set of rules to all the paragraph elements, we write the name of the tag P, followed by an open, and then a closed curly brace. We refer to the P here as the selector. The selector indicates the type of element the style rule will apply to. Next, we need to indicate what about the paragraphs we'd like to change. In this case, we want to change the color of the paragraph text. This part of the rule is called a property. And color is just one of the many properties we can change about a paragraph. A property is followed by a colon. Finally, we need to specify the value we want for that property. To make the paragraph purple, let's add the word purple after the property. And finally, add a semicolon to indicate the end of the style rule. The CSS that we just wrote is called a rule set, because like the name implies, it's a set of rules to specify a style for the selected element. We can add multiple property value pairs to the same selector to further control the style of our web page's paragraph elements. If we want these paragraphs to be purple and large, we can add the font size property to control the text size. Then specify a number value to set how large the font will be. CSS allows for all sorts of style rules: fonts, positioning, size, and colors. The more style rules you learn, the more you can make your web page tell the story you want.
Okay. So that was a brief introduction of CSS, which you can tell is a little different than what we've been doing. Okay, so click on 5, lesson 5. So this HTML file uses a style sheet, and that's your style.css, to give the page a particular style, which is what you see here. The style sheet contains information about what each of the HTML elements should look like. So what they want you to do on this sheet is to find the code in the style sheet that's making the H1 heading red. So let's look at style. And do y'all see what she was talking about in the video? They've done H1, because that's corresponding to right here, H1, what we've got in our HTML code. H1 color, colon, red, semicolon, font size, colon, 24px, semicolon. And then you've got to close your bracket. Does everybody see what that part corresponds to? All right. Change the color for the H1 heading from red to a different color. Let's do that. Let's change it maybe to blue. or you can pick your color.
There's a lot of colors.
Yep. So you're going to change it to a different color. I changed mine to deep sky blue.
Wow.
And you can change it to whatever color you want to. So in each thing with the CSS, you're going to get what you're changing, brackets, you'll get the property, and the property we're changing is color. That's the value, the deep sky blue. All right, did everybody get theirs changed to a different color? All right, let's click finish and see what's next. Okay, so now we're going to make a new CSS rule set. The block of code that gives rules for a particular tag is called a rule set. You can make a new rule set by copying the pattern you see in the rule set for the H1 tag. So find the CSS rule sheet in the style sheet that determines the styles for the H1 tag. So we're on the CSS rule sheet. So this right now is determining the H1 tag, all of that. Using the same pattern, write a new CSS rule set that will determine the style for the H3 tag. So this is what you're going to do for H1. Let's do one for H3.
Do we have to make it?
Yeah, you make it. And those brackets they're using are by the letter P.
So we do color.
You do the same thing you did for H1.
Do we do font size too?
Sure. All right, does anybody have any questions about this one? One of the things that makes this rule set nice is you will notice that it's applying to the H3 headers. All of the H3 headers change to whatever parameters you set, each one of the headers. So that's one way you can ensure that all the headers in your document are the same size and color. Once you set the HTML, they would have to be already H3 to be included. But as long as they're H3, they're going to be the same color and font style. Are y'all good with that? Okay, let's click finish. Let's look at the next one. You can control other things besides colors by using other properties. And this time, we're going to before we move on, when you do the font, you're writing PX. PX means pixel. That's what's being abbreviated when you do 24px or 12px. That's how elements are measured in CSS. They're using pixels. It's the size of a single point of light on a screen. So that's how a lot of times with computers, things will be labeled in pixels. So for this particular one, we're going to change the size of the text. So find the CSS rule set that determines the style for the paragraph tag. Change the text size of the paragraphs and the headings.
So we change everything
Yep.
to whatever we want.
Yeah, but just make sure it makes sense. Your heading should be the largest. And still make sure that your heading's the largest and then it goes down from there. So if we did So for this one, you should have gone in for H3, gone in and changed the pixels or the font size, as well as for the paragraph and your largest heading. Okay, anybody have questions on this one? All right, let's click finish. Okay, so this is moving on, as this is another short clip. How does the web page know what style sheet it should be using? So that's what this one's going to address. Think about that question.
Now we know how to create rule sets in CSS. But where do we put them? And how will our web page know how to apply these rules? All of our CSS rules will live in a file separate from the HTML. We'll refer to this file as the style sheet for the web page. The file name usually ends in .css. Now our style sheet exists, but the web page doesn't know about it yet. We need to add a link element in the HTML file telling it about the style sheet. When the browser goes to load the contents of the web page, it will see that link element for the style sheet and use those style rules to figure out how the page should be displayed. To add a link to the style sheet, we add the link tag. Inside the tag, we specify that the link is to a style sheet and add the name of the CSS file.
Okay, so even though it's in your HTML code, if we don't tell it it's there, it's not going to recognize that that's the style it should use. So lesson 9 says adding a style sheet. This developer has been working on some style for the page but has forgotten to add the style sheet, so none of them work. Inside the HTML page, add the code that will link the style sheet to the web page. So if you click Add CSS,
I put it right above it.
Style, Go back real quick.
What do we do once we?
Okay, hold on one second. Okay. If we needed to add a new CSS style sheet, you would click here. We have one right here. It's already titled style.css.
So we don't make any.
We do link. What you're going to do is go back to your HTML page, and in between right here where it says head, we're going to put link. We have to give it this link. It's the same link they're telling you right here. You're linking it between where it says head. Let me make mine bigger. So you want this file, and as soon as you link that file, you should see the changes here. They bring in the style elements. It should be,
Yeah, they're supposed to be small. That's how not really.
yeah, it should be like this, like the font's really small. I think they did that to show you, well, let's go look at what they did on style.
It did 6.
Yes, font size 6 pixels.
pixels.
Wait, so we put link style sheet.
Your link, you've got a link, REL equals style sheets in quotes, and then once you do href equals, and you start typing style, it'll pop up.
Why didn't come up?
Check your link and make sure you did it exactly. Exactly like this. You have opening and closing.
Oh, I need
Link.
a closing. Got it.
Okay. Did everyone's pop up? So we have to remember each time that just because you do a CSS sheet, you have to link it so this file knows to use this file for the style. Okay, any questions so far on that one? Okay, I'm gonna let you guys start going through these, and then we'll go over them. And I'm gonna walk around if anyone needs help. So just like we've done before, this is going to give you some more practice doing the font size, paragraph style, and while you're doing that, I'm going to walk around and make sure everybody understands, and we'll go over these together tomorrow.